To continue, I have my interior openings. I just don't have my exterior openings. So any way you would like to generate the openings for your doors and windows are fine. I showed you multiple ways. You want to keep using solid tools, you can. You want to generate a rectangular opening as well, you can do that, or follow the floor plan, create some rectangles, and just keep pushing and pulling. Whichever way you want to do it is fine. I'll try to practice different ways here to show you. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my tools and just place them up here because I know what they look like now, at least the icons. I'm familiar with them. And I just want more real estate here. Now, before I continue, I'd like to start adding some materials here because it'll make this a lot more fun to see some color. So I'm going to come over here to my materials, go to the drop down, and I can select different materials here. And right now I have it set to glass and mirrors, but I'm going to go to the drop down there and you can see that there are different categories. And I'm going to focus right now on this category where it says asphalt and concrete. So I click on that. And these are the swatches. To see the swatches, click over here under details or where it says details, and you'll see that you have the thumbnail sizes. And I'll go to extra large thumbnails just to see them a little bit better. And from here, if you just hover, it'll tell you what that material name is. So I think I'm going to select polished concrete new for mine. I'm going to give that a click. And as soon as I click it, I move my cursor over and I have this paint bucket and it's ready to apply that material or paint that material onto my solid. So I'm going to add it right here to my concrete, or rather to my surface, and that's going to be all concrete. And then I'll tap the space bar. And you'll notice that it is concrete also on the inside. And that's not what I will want. I want a different material on the inside. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my 3D walls, turn those off. And obviously this is, oh, interesting. It was on that, it was tagged that way, but I believe after I used the subtract tool over here, it may have changed that and removed the tag. So I'll I'll have it highlighted here and then I'll go over here to where it says tag and I'll put it on the 3D walls. That's interesting that it did that. And that's all right. Again, I'm glad it's happening here to me so that you can also learn from it. All right. So what do I want to do now? The thing is, I want concrete on the exterior. I want concrete on the face out here also, but I don't want concrete, let's say in my living room and my kitchen and my bedrooms and bath. So what I'm going to do is double click on the group like this, and it highlights the group. And what I want to do is just systematically here, start going through and start drawing lines for the areas where I would like a different material. What I mean by that is this. I'll type L. And when it comes to the inside here of the space, I'm going to start to draw a line here. From this endpoint, I'll take it over here. And I'm basically drawing this area where I want the material to be different. And I'll just follow the inside walls like this. And I'll zoom in close, real close right here like this. And you know what I'll do? I'll just carry it straight across like this. And I'll keep going all the way over here. Pan, zoom, orbit, whatever you need to do. I'm going to come across here, but I want it to snap to that edge. And by the way, when you see that line turn magenta, that means that it is following or it's going to be tangent to that endpoint or that line there. And that's fine. That's what I want. So I'll click. And then I'm going to take it up all the way there. And then I'm going to pan, click right here, and then come down and click right there. And you notice it highlighted all of the lines for me now. And sometimes it's hard to tell when you've created that area. So be mindful of where you start and where you end the lines that you're drawing. So I'm going to tap the space bar now, and I'm just going to click right here. And notice how that gives me a different surface. And that's what I want. So with that area highlighted, now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to a different category. And I'm going to select, for example, let's see, I want wood because I'd like to put in a wood floor. And I'll just pick this one here as an example. So wood floor light, click on that. And then it shows me the swatch, what the material could look like. And I just come over here and I apply it to this surface like that. And then I tap my space bar and then I click outside of my group. And you see what I now have. It is still the same surface. Let me turn off my wall layer so you can see this. It is still the one surface, but I was able to split that or divide it and then apply different materials. So here, I'll bring my walls back like that. And let's say in my bathroom, I would like a different material. So what I'll do is I'll just draw a rectangle from this endpoint over to this endpoint. And now it looks like it's a different material on there. And I know why, because I was not in my group. Again, I'm glad this is happening to me so that I can explain it to you. When you start using SketchUp, it's a challenge to remember that you need to be in groups, and that's all right. So let me tap the space bar. Let me go ahead and come up here to edit, undo rectangle. The thing is to notice these things immediately. And having used SketchUp for a while, I could tell right away that I was not in the group. So I'll double click in the group and then I'll come back and draw the rectangle from this endpoint over to this endpoint like that. Now, notice how there's no white surface and there's no interesting things happening on screen. So I drew it in the right location. So if I tap the space bar and then click right here, you see how it's a different area. And then I'll come over here to my materials and just pick something different. There's synthetic surfaces. So maybe I want a different material here. There's Formica, quartz. What else do we have? Take a look at these. Pick any surfaces that you want. For example, if you want like marble, where's marble? That's going to be under my stones. You want a marble finish? Go right ahead. I'll pick this one, stone marble, and I'll just apply it right there. So whatever you'd like to do, have a little fun with it. So I'll go ahead and tap the space bar, click outside of the group, and then I have that going on. And now I'll turn on my 3D walls. And look at that. It's looking a lot better now. Speaking of materials, let's stay on the materials here for a moment. And let's say that I want my building to have a material on the outside. Let's say brick, for example. I want to show you something here that if I look at my brick material, and let's say I want to go with this brick right here, which is Antique 01. I click on it, and then I apply it to the groove. One click, and now everything is brick. I don't want my interior walls to be brick. I also don't want the interior face of my exterior walls to be brick. I just want the outside. So here's what I do. I'm going to edit, undo this. And then I'm going to pick a color that I would like to use on the inside of my building. So I'm just going to come to the drop down here and go to colors. And you can see there's a long list of colors. And then you can also go to another one called colors named. And this one, just about as long. It gives you a different set of choices. Whichever one you pick from is fine. I'll go to colors. And I'd like to go with a nice off-white color. And perhaps this one will do for now, color CO2. So I'll give that a click. And I'm going to apply it to my group. And notice how everything now has that color. And as I look at it, I can also think about it and go, well, maybe I changed my mind. I want to go maybe a little bit lighter. So let's see if I can find something lighter like this one here, color D02, and then click on it. And you can change these at any time you want. You're not stuck with them. If you want to go with a cool color like this, you can also do that. Whatever you'd like. Pick your colors. So just so it shows up on screen a little better, I'm going to pick this color right here and apply it. And you'll notice what's happening. It's applying it to the entire group, which is great. Now, I want to go back and apply brick to the exterior face. So to do that, I need to tap the space bar so that I'm back in my, sorry, tap the space bar. There we go. Back to my selection mode. Double click on the group. There we go. And then click on the material. In my case, it's this antique brick. Click on it and then just select the individual faces. You'll have to go around the building like this, like I am. Bit of panning and zooming and orbiting here. Don't want to miss this wall or this one. And now all of my exterior walls have that material applied to them. And then I'll tap the space bar and then I'll click outside. So that was easier to do. Instead of making everything brick and then changing the inside colors, it's easier just to give everything one color and then apply the different material to the exterior faces. Now watch this. If I decide I change my mind on that interior color again, I'm going to go back over here to colors. Well, let me try colors named. And let's see if I can find another color. Let me go with this one. This one's bisque. I click on it. And now when I click on my group, one click, notice how it didn't affect the brick material. And that's because I was specifically adding the brick material to those faces. So I overrode the general settings, but I never did anything unique to the walls here. I painted them all at once. So that's why they change colors, whereas the exterior does not. So just be mindful of that. So let me go ahead and tap the space bar, and then I can go ahead and continue. So this is how you start to add materials and color to your model. Now, let me open up another, actually, no, I don't need to open up another window here. So I now have the styles, and I've been using X-ray a lot, but notice how this is set to shaded with textures. And that's okay, but sometimes when I'm zoomed in like this and I go to X-ray mode, it gets a little difficult to see through. So what I'll do sometimes is I'll switch it, and instead of being shaded with textures, I'll just go to shaded. And that removes the texture and just leaves this color on there, which is fine. If that's a little difficult still to see through, you can go ahead and switch this over to hidden lines. And notice how now all the color is gone and you can see through everything a lot better. So play around with the styles. It's up to you. I know I've been using the X-ray. There's also this back edges. So if I turn off X-ray and I turn on back edges, you can do that also. But for me, seeing those dashed lines, it's a little difficult to read. I just prefer X-ray instead. So notice how you toggle between those two. And then you also have this option, which is wireframe, and this is just going to show every single line. And that can be a little difficult to handle, so I don't use that often. So I'll leave it over here on shaded. And then there's another option here, which is monochrome. It says displays the face with default front and back face colors. So you can do that also. It just kind of hides the color. So your choice. You have the options. You know what to do. So I'll switch mine to shaded and I'll dock this window back up here. And then I'll continue. So I need to get in my door opening here, and I'm just going to measure this real quick. The distance from one end to the other. It is 6'4", which means I have a couple of 3-foot wide doors and then the 2-inch frame on either side. So I want to put that opening in there. And it looks like it's going to carry through onto the other side as well. So to do that, I can use solids again, or I think I'm going to do it differently. And I have X-ray on. If I had it off, I wouldn't be able to see through, but I want to be able to see through. And then I think I'm going to turn off my 3D foundation tag so that I don't see that, and it makes it a little bit easier to work with the model. Oh, one other thing also. You notice how you're seeing your X, Y, and Z axes here. You can go up to view and you can turn off axes. I call them axes, either one. If I turn them off, now I don't see them. And sometimes it's easier to model without those being in place. But as long as you know which way red goes and which way green is oriented and blue, you're going to be fine. But if needed, leave them on or whatever you choose to do. I just find that it gets a little in the way sometimes from explaining things. So I'm going to turn them off momentarily. So I'll do that. And then I want to put the opening in here. So I'm going to draw a line from this point up, constrained to blue, so up arrow. And this is going to be 6'8". So I'm going to keep it 6'8" plus 2 inches is going to be 6'10". So I'll type in 6'10" and enter. And then I want to carry the line straight across. See how it's constraining to red? And I could type the distance, but I'm going to use my right arrow key, tap it. So now it's constrained to red. And then I'm just going to come right down here and click on that endpoint so that it constrains to it, and it's going to give me the right width. So I click. And then I'll continue by clicking one more time right there. Done. Tap the space bar. And what I've done is I've drawn these 3 lines, 1, 2, 3, but I wasn't in the group. And that's all right, because I showed you how I can bring them over to the group. So I will go ahead and triple click, and that picks all 3 lines. And then I'll go to edit, and I will cut. Then I'll go into my group. There we go. And then I'll go to edit, paste in place. And then if I click inside, it's working because it's highlighting just that area. If I click out here, it has separated that, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to click off of those surfaces. I'm still in the group. And then I'll go ahead and type P for push pull. I'll click on the surface and I'll push it through. And you see where it says offset limit 8 inches? That means it's finding the other side. And you can see that it's finding it because even the graphics are changing a little bit there. So just click and it creates the opening. So that worked out just fine. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Although, let me show you another way to do this. I'm going to go to the underside like this. There we go. I'm in the group, and I'm going to draw a rectangle from this endpoint over to this endpoint. Now, I'll be real careful so you can see what I'm doing. On the underside, just drawing a rectangle like that. And then if I tap the space bar and I click on this surface, you see how it's separate? So now I can go ahead and type P for push pull and click on that new surface. And I'm going to push it straight up. And I want it to have the same height as that opening. You see how I'm locking into that same height? Here, let me orbit it this way a bit. There we go. And then I click. And I have my opening. And it matches the other one. So those are the 2 exterior doors at that location. Now let me go over to this side. And I want to put in my door opening here. So I'm going to orbit this way. And I'll orbit to the underside. I can draw another rectangle, or I can go ahead and just draw a line from this endpoint down here, and then a line from this endpoint down there. Spacebar, click. It has separated. I'm going to zoom out a little bit like this. And then I'm going to type P for push pull. Click on that surface, take it straight up. And then I want it to be the same height as the other door. So look at how I'm orbiting here while I'm in that push pull command. And then I'm going to move my cursor right over here. Don't be afraid. See how it's locking into that endpoint? that's the height I want to establish, I give that a click and I've got my height and then I can orbit. I could have typed in the value of 6'10", but I just wanted to show you how this can work also by taking advantage of existing geometry. So I'll go ahead and tap the spacebar now. And then you have your window openings. Now I'm going to place one window opening, but you will put in all of yours. I just want to show you how this works. So I've indicated on my drawing, and here, let me click away, and let me also turn off my 3D walls and turn on my walls. All right. I'm showing that I want to have a window here. I also have an opening here for that window. I guess I should model both of them to give you an example. And let's say that this one I want to run at full height. And this one, I know that there's a counter there. The counter is at 3 feet. So I have to take that into account. So I'll model both of these openings and then I'll get my windows in there. So I'll turn my 3D walls back on. And like I said, I want this opening here to go full height. So I am going to do this. And then I'll draw a rectangle from this endpoint here to this endpoint. And then type P for push pull. And again, notice I was not in my group. So let me tap the escape key and tap the space bar. And in this case, it's just easier to go ahead and edit, undo the rectangle and go into my group like that. And then draw the rectangle. And let me do this. Let me turn off X-ray mode since I'm on the underside here, just so you can see what I'm going to do. So I'll type P. Nope, not yet. I have to do the rectangle from this endpoint over to this one. P for push pull. Click on it, take it all the way up until it touches that edge and click. And sometimes it will delete the edge. Sometimes it leaves it like you see there. And that's fine. So let's say that's a full height opening. But remember, I have to take into account, well, no, I was going to say I have to take into account my structure, but I'm going to do that with my roof. So this is a good height. Let's just leave it there. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and erase this line and then this one. Now, if you decide that you want your your window to possibly be a few feet off the ground and a few feet from the top, then just draw some more rectangles, push pull, and erase extra lines, and you'll be fine. Here, for example, I'll show you. I'll only do it on this one over here. I will go ahead and go back to my X-ray mode, and I'll put this window in. And I'll do it the same way I did the other one, just so you can see what I'm going to do. So let me do this. I'm in my group. I want to draw a rectangle. I believe I can type R. Yes, R for rectangle. And be mindful of all the lines that you see there. Sometimes you have to orbit if you don't want them to overlap as much. I'll click right here and then over there. And then I'll type P for push pull. Take this. And like I said, I'll take it all the way up on purpose like that. And then I'll erase like that. Okay. And then I'll come back down like this. All right. Now turn off X-ray mode. And remember, there is a counter here. Let me tap the space bar. There's a counter, that's the kitchen, and that counter is going to be at least 3 feet. So in order for the window to not hit the counter, I'm going to take that sill all the way up, bottom of the window sill. It's going to be at 3'4". So here's what I would do. I'm going to draw a rectangle again from this endpoint over to this one. P for push pull. Take it straight up, and it'll be 3 feet for enter. Now, you'll notice how it's not picking up that color of the material. Here, if I switch it over to my shaded with textures, you see that? And that's all right. Watch this. I'm going to type E for erase, and I'll erase this line. And look at that. It picked up the material, and then I'll erase this line. But I'm also going to go into my X-ray mode, and I can see that there are more lines that I need to erase. So let me turn off A walls just to make sure. And yep, those are some extra lines that do not need to be there. I switch this over to shaded. In fact, how about I switch it over to hidden lines? There we go. And then erase this line, this one, and that one. Okay. And I'm going to stay in this mode now. And I'll go ahead and type R for rectangle from here to there. Notice how it filled it in. Look at this. Filled in. And that's all right. I'll go ahead and tap the space bar, click on this surface, delete it, click on that surface and delete it. Okay. Now, let me go back to X-ray mode off. There we go. And let's say that I want my window to perhaps be in line with this opening over here, right? Let it match up. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to type P for push pull. I'll click on that rectangle. I'm going to bring it down. Notice how it's leaving an opening at the top. I'll fix that in just a moment. And then I want it to line up with that endpoint. You see that? I just give it a click and it lines up. Now, remember, I had this happen when I was constructing that other wall, when I was putting in this wall over here. I could have tapped the control key, but I forgot to, and that's all right because I know that I can come back over here, type L, and draw a line over an existing line like this. Click on it, and it will fill it in. That's great. Now I go over to my styles, and I switch it over to hidden line, and then I go into X-ray mode, and then I type E for erase, and I start getting rid of some extra lines like this one, and that one, and then the other three over here. I'm just going to click and drag across, get rid of those two, and then click and drag across to get rid of that one. And that creates the opening. And now if I go back to shaded with texture and turn off X-ray mode, that's my window opening. Now, if you want to get a little fancy here, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to go in my selection tool like this. I'm going to click off of that group. And what I'm going to do now is just put in a nice stone sill. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw a line from this endpoint down, and I'm going to constrain to blue with my up arrow. And I want that sill to be, let's say, trying to think what would be a good height. And let's say we want to make it 3 inches. So I'm going to type in 3 and enter. And I can keep going across, and I'll use my left arrow key to constrain to green. Click here. And then I can just keep drawing the lines. There we go. And see, that's a surface on top of another surface, but they're not meant to be part of the same group. So I'm good. And then I'll type P for push pull. I'll take this surface and just bring it out. And I'm just going to bring it out, let's say 2 inches. So I type 2 and enter. Probably doesn't come out that far, but that's all right. And then I'll go ahead and tap the space bar. I will triple click, and then I will right click, and I will make a group. And I want this to have, let's say, a stone finish. So I go over to my materials, I look at my stones, and I see which one I would like to use. Let's say I go with this granite light gray for now. And then I click on it. So that gives me a sill. You don't have to do this. It's just a nice way of adding an extra level of detail. I'll tap the space bar and click on it. So there it is. Now, if you're going to do that, then if I turn off my 3D walls, you notice that that's just going to be hovering there, and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that object and I'm going to tag it on the 3D walls, onto the 3D walls. So now when I turn off my 3D walls, that too is turned off. And that's how I can proceed. Okay, now's a good time to save because next it's time to add some doors. So File, Save, and then we can proceed with some door openings.